Hello there, welcome back to my hobby bench. My name is Ken, and in this episode we're going to continue working on our M1A2 Abrams. So with our Abrams now completed, what's next for us to do is for painting. Some parts have already been painted, such as the tracks and the road wheels, and the rest of this has not. Now before we talk about painting, let's talk about some other options we have with a model such as this tank. So some of the options we have is we could have gone to these smoke dischargers here, and we could have drilled out all the little smoke grenade holders. That way it would seem like it's a little bit more accurate. There are many other things you can do as well. You can get replacement tow cables here, such as this. You can get things such as the A-frame tow bar that would go up on the front. And in this hobby we have here, we have many opportunities for adding other things such as, unfortunately this is 1/35th scale, so it's not the right scale for a tank, but for an example, this is a barrel, the 120 millimeter barrel for the Abrams. So that's an aftermarket, it's metal, which is great for those kits where the barrel is actually two halves put together and they end up with those really bad seams. You could use a metal barrel. I have many other optional pieces of stowage. Again, these are all in 1/35th, but you have many options to go and add things to your vehicle, such as backpacks for the troops that are in the vehicle. Here we have some empty casings. I know it's hard to see, but some empty casings for a 50 caliber machine gun. We have all sorts of antennae and hooks, chains you could add, antenna mounts. A lot of these are for 1/35th, but I do have some that are for example, this 2-meter antenna that's in here is for 1/72nd scale. And this would be the right scale, 1/48th, but this is for World War II German military vehicles, this antenna. So you have many options of things you can add to your vehicle to really, spice it up and add some life to it. For example, here I have a couple smaller items that kind of fit for stowage. So we would have, say for example, these two ammo cans. So they're actually for 1/35th, but they could go into the storage bustle, or the storage bustles here, and add a little bit of life. I have this rolled up tarp we could add in here somewhere and add a little extra something. On the 1/35th I have water bottles, other spent ammo, things like that you can add. It just adds an extra level of detail that you don't actually have. This model unfortunately does not even come with jerry cans for fuel, which would normally be with a lot of the other kits or backpacks or anything like that. So that being said, we're gonna now move on and go towards painting. So first thing we're gonna do is kind of clear the desk here. I'm going to come back. We'll flip the tank over. No. You want to flip it over gently. Gently, you're going to break something. Whoa, just gently, okay? You just basically threw the whole thing away. Well, for the rest of you who still have a model and are ready to work on it, what we're going to do is we're going to take our turret and we're going to take it off the tank. no. You gotta turn it sideways first. And that's why you remove all your stowage and troops from the vehicle first, so you don't spill it all over the ground, damaging stuff. I tell you, you're just all thumbs here. You just can't have nice things. So here we have the bottom of our tank here. I've gone ahead and sprayed half of it, of the bottom here, with a gray primer. When I actually prime the vehicle, because I'm going to be airbrushing it, I'll be basing the entire vehicle in black. But just to show you guys painting with a brush, I'm going to go ahead, for the bottom, I'm going to use a large number 10 flat brush to be able to put the paint on. I'm going to be using some XF67 NATO green from Tamiya, as well as some of the Tamiya paint retarder to help the paint spread along nice and thin and level in a better manner. So I've put some paint in here, and then I've put just a couple of drops of the retarder just to slow things down a bit. Put them to the side now. I'll come in with my number 10 brush, and I'm not gonna go too much. I'm gonna wipe the exact excess off here. So, and then just come along here. You can kind of see with painting with the larger brush, you kind of cover more area. And then, of course, painting on the prime side goes nicely. And what we're doing here is we're just doing some thin coats. It's gonna be a couple thin coats, and then with the retarder in it, I can actually go over like areas several times, whereas it's not really ideal with Tamiya paint. And then we have our unprimed side here. We'll come in here and we can paint that as well. Again, not too thick, we're doing thin coats. And this is just to show you the difference between painting on primed and painting on unprimed. Now if you have the right kind of paints, painting unprimed is not an issue at all. However, with some paints, such as your Viejo Model Air, is actually pre-thinned, and it actually can be a little bit more difficult to do brush painting. But there we have kind of a first coat here, and we're going to let that dry for a minute, and then we'll come back and we'll go for a second coat. So I'll give that a minute to dry. Okay, it's been sort of like a minute or so here, and the paint's just starting to dry a little bit. So I'm going to take some more now. I'm going to start working on my second coat. And with brush painting, I personally find it best that the first time I went this way, so this time I'm going to go against that grain, any grain sort of that I've put in. And you can see like that. There we go. I'm using NATO green here just to kind of give you a good idea with the contrast. I didn't want to use some color paint that's the same as the actual base plastic, such as like a desert tan, that sort of thing. Actually, I'm running on a paint here. I didn't mix up too much because I'm not going to be painting the entire tank in this green. But you can kind of see just even putting down a second coat starts to make a bit of a difference. Just like that. So there we go, that's our second coat. I'll mix up just a little bit more paint to put another coat on, and we'll be right back. Okay, I've mixed up a little bit more paint, again with just a drop or two of the paint retarder. Doesn't take much of that paint retarder. And then now this time we'll come back the original direction we were. And I actually feel a difference of the paint that's been on the primer, and that's the area that has not. So it goes, it really seems to catch the brush where the primered area is. Maybe that's just my imagination, I'm not too sure. There we go, there's our third coat, getting some really good coverage. So here we are after about 5 or 6 coats of the NATO green. And you can see I have a few brush strokes in here. But you really got to be careful, because at this point now, anything I start putting in there for brush strokes is probably going to stay. And there are a few brush strokes, but they're very minor. But the coverage is pretty well with primer side and unprimer side. I can tell a slight difference in the color, kind of where it, what part's shaded because of the primer, which side isn't. The side without the primer can be a little more prone to chipping, so you got to be careful of that. Here you can see back in this area here, let's get a pointing tool here. You can see back here, that's more to one coat, just kind of back here. And on the front here is maybe about 2 coats here. So just to kind of give you an idea. But that's how I go about brush painting, if that's what I was going to do. But with that being shown to you now, I'm going to move over to the paint booth, prime everything black, and I'm going to get started on painting the vehicle in a desert scheme. So here we are in our paint booth here, setting up to paint everything with a black primer. And again, I'll be using the AK primer and microfiller to do this. The commander here, I think I'm going to prime him up in gray and paint him by hand. And yeah, so I'm going to get at that, and I'll catch up with you when this has all been primed black. Okay, you can see we have our parts all primed in a nice black base coat here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a little bit of pre-shading. What I'm going to be doing on these panels all around the vehicle, I'm going to be using some white microfiller and primer by AK. And that'll kind of give us a bit of a heavier effect on the vehicle once it's all kind of painted up. So what I'm going to do is I have my airbrush set here at a lower pressure. I just have my white primer. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in on these little panels here, just into the centers of them. I'm just going to paint a little white patch, just like that. Okay, and again I'll come over to this one, like that. Maybe a little bit over here in this panel, a little bit over here in this panel, come back around over here, just like that. So I'm going to go around now, I'm going to mask up, and I'm going to put on my paint booth here so it vents out. And sorry about the compressor noise here, it's pretty loud. I'm going to go around, paint all this up, and I'll come back once all the pre-shading has been completed. So you can see here I've added my white for the highlights, and what you may notice is I didn't go solid white. I kind of did a bit of a mottled effect where it's kind of lighter and darker areas. This one here is pretty dark, but in general that's kind of what I went with. It kind of gives it that uneven pattern. As the tank, goes through its life, and the paint's gonna, fade more in some areas than others, and that's hopefully what this is gonna represent. So our next step would be to get our base color. Now for the lower hull here, what we used was the AK, which is RC084, which is the sand color, which is FS30277. And it shows having the American star, so meaning that it is a US based paint for US equipment. So that's the color I'm going to use for my main body. So I'll get some thinned out and ready to apply to our main body, and I'll show you what it looks like as we're going over top here and what the effect will be. So I'll get all matched up and get my paint ready, and I'll be right back. So I have my color cup loaded up with my paint, mixed about 50-50 with the Mr. Color Rapid Thinner. What I'm going to do is just test my flow here. Seems pretty good. Maybe a little bit more air pressure. There we go. What I can do here now is gently, sorry about the air compressor here, just go over my pre-shaded body here. And as you can see, I'm not going too thick. What I want to see is just this start to disappear, the shading to disappear just a little bit, and as it dries it'll come back. Like that. And as you can see, that adds kind of a nice effect to it. There we go. Now it's looking, for me, I'm looking at the camera, it's looking really dark with these black lines back here, but for me in person it doesn't look as dark. I'll try and do that a little bit more. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my mask on and my air paint booth here venting outside, and I'll do the rest of this painting and I'll be right back. So here we have our tank now with the base color on. Now when I did the white, I didn't put any weight on the bottom or down in this area along the sides of the road wheels, because it's not really going to be seen, plus it's not going to get as faded, it's not really in the sunlight. If your bottom of your tank's showing up and getting faded by the sun, then you have some serious issues. So also again, I didn't put any weight on the insides of the side skirts or on the bottom of the turret. So what we can do now is take our tank, put the turret back on sideways, and line up the, oh, there we go. So there we go, we're getting close. What we're going to do next is we're going to put on the road wheels and the side skirts and the tracks, and we'll have all that, and we'll see what it looks like as soon as that's done. So here we are, just putting on our tracks. I had built them up, and as you had seen earlier, but you know, at one point it did break off. Not a big deal though. I can still attach it like that, and it'll be right in place. So what I did is I put the top run of the tracks in first, got them glued into position. Then I added the main body, and as I'm adding them, I wrapped them around the drive sprocket, which, remember, is held in place by a poly cap, whereas the rest of the wheels were just glued into place and the tracks were glued to it. So what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of glue on the edge here, some of the extra thin. I'm going to take the Tamiya white cement, and I'm going to put that on the wheel here. Now, one thing to keep in mind is both these cements eat your paint. So if you have to put a drop on, you know, I might kind of shake my head and just, I don't like doing it, but I have done it. If you do, you're just going to put one single drop and then back away. Don't add any more. You start adding more, you start losing paint. Here you can see I had a little drop of glue came in right there. If I can zoom in here. And it actually caused that paint to be smeared a little bit. I'm not too worried though, because this should cover it up. So it's not too bad, not a big loss. Worst case, I could come back, just kind of mask this off a bit and spray that in again. Not an issue. Had the same issue on the bottom, a little bit of glue on my finger, kind of got in there and destroyed the paint bit. Again, I can always come back and touch that up. So, I'm going to take my tracks now with the glue, put them in place, like this. Let's try this, putting this glue here again. You can kind of see it's been knocking off the paint a little bit. So let's do this again. Put that in place. And there we go. And again, as a builder's note, you don't actually need to put this top row of tracks in if you are going to be using the side skirts. You'd get away without really seeing that. So, yeah, there we have it. So that's going to be it. I'll glue these side skirts on. I'll end the episode here. We'll come back next time. We'll look at putting on the water slide transfers, and then we'll also look at putting a clear coat on the model and painting up and adding all the other pieces. And if we have time, we'll also look at doing a little bit of weathering. So, thanks for joining me. I look forward to seeing you next time when we can take our model and get it all finished up. Alright, so you guys take care and have a good day.